ingredients for a thrilling game of poker were laid out here in Vienna for the 6th staging of the big game. The biggest names in the business, a stunning location, plenty of cash and a good dose of tension, all made for an electrifying opening to this 48-hour non-stop cash game.
Welcome to the Montesino in Vienna and the Party Poker Big Game 6. 48 hours of non-stop action. The clock has relentlessly ticked past the 8-hour mark, and some have found the pressure too great. Of the 8 who started out on this epic journey, only 4 have kept their place at the table, and 2 in particular have done it in some style. Alec Torelli has been the story of the last few hours, storming past his sparring partner Phil Laak. He had Marc Gork in his sights, although both men were confident their pair of kings would be unbeatable, but when the 8 fell on the turn, it proved an irresistible combination. The trap snapped shut. He does not like to see that. That hurts. It was enough to finish off Gork and propelled the American up the leaderboard. If that wasn't enough, Torelli took his chance in the next hand with Tony G and came out on top once again. I like the way he needles Tony. It's pretty relentless. And from that point on, he rarely had a moment to look back. Phil Laak has vowed to last the course, and financially that looks possible. From the moment the first card hit the table, the money has been heading in the Americans' direction. There have been a few ups and downs, but after the early clashes with Trickett, the foundation for success had been laid. Romanello was another who took the opportunity with Marc Gork at the table.
Bam!
He remains in pretty good shape going into the next few hours. Win or lose, the man they love to talk about is Tony G. He was itching to get onto this table, and when given the chance, ran blindly into Alec Torelli.
Call and say the flop, do it properly. Call or fold. Probably fold is the best thing to do here. You're coming from America, you want to make a joke out of me? That's what you want?
It's not easy with the 7 in your hand to just put in the 20 ball.
Torelli on top by a few thousand from Phil Laak. Romanello fighting hard, and he along with Jungleman keeping their heads above water. For Trickett and Tony G, it's looking fairly grim, although Sam Trickett is staging a massive fight back. Local man Yusuf is about to take his chance in the big game. Plenty of experience in cash games, all of which may be needed as he prepares to take on the likes of Laak and Torelli.
I think the min.
Yusuf, welcome to the game. Yusuf 10,000 to start, Scott. And, you know, this is just sort of a reflection of, as I was saying before, there's a new VIP room here at the Montesino Casino in Vienna. They have high-stakes games. It's basically like 1 week on, 1 week off. The high-stakes games go like 24 hours a day from, I think it's, you know, Tuesday to Sunday or something like that, and then take off for a week. So they go fairly big at that stage, and right now it's a bit of a center here as far as European high-stakes games. It's always exciting if you're a guy who plays local to, you know, when the big boys come to town to play on TV. We'll see how Yusuf does. He's gotten straight in with the straddle anyway.
Torelli raises with the suited connector there, and Roberto disguises his hand and chooses to just call with the ace-king, probably hoping someone squeezes behind him. And he gets that because Roberto's instincts are dead on. He's seen that Damir has been 3-betting from the button non-stop with any playable hand, and it's Damir's button, so he decides to just call with the ace-king and probably wants to put in another raise when it gets back to him.
I think you figured that out exactly.
How are you doing, Katya?
And Torelli is going to be the least excited about this because he's about to get sandwiched. in the middle of a pickle. You know, you really can't fold this if you're Torelli, not yet. But you're about to as soon as Roberto sticks in the schlocker.
And Damir only has 15,000 here, so Roberto is going to want his bet sizing to be so big, not too big, but so big where if and when Damir does make the call and sees a flop, he's really committing too much of his stack. Probably bet sizing where Roberto can then probably ship most flops. Expect him to make it around 5,000.
He's such a smart guy, Roberto. He's a smart poker player. Although, I mean, has anyone else noticed that he's got the Daniel Negreanu thing going on now?
Yeah, you know what? He does kind of look like Daniel. I definitely
He does
see
now.
that.
He's got the whole
The
beard
hat,
thing,
the-
the hat.
yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm a big fan of Daniel's. I know a lot of people are. But as Roberto would say, why is Daniel trying to look like him? He's like the spitting image. He's now like Negreanu's little brother.
I know it's wrong. He doesn't make it 5,000. He makes it 4,900.
You have to know me a little. You have to know that I value things, you know. Money is used to purchase. Yeah.
It does look like he is going to call. This pot's going to be big, and
Torelli, however, has a different decision because now there's more money in the pot than there was before, and he also has more chips, but he still folds. I mean, that more proves my point. Like Torelli had better odds to call and was deeper, and still decides to fold. However, he was out of position.
Damir's on the button. Roberto's on the action. Maybe he's hoping for the high cards. Nice flop for the old slick.
I mean, and Roberto's hand is so big here. I wonder if he elects to just check it and let him hang himself because, like, in this spot like this, Damir's basically drawing dead, drawing to runners, and he's never going to call any bet here. So if Roberto's really in the zone here, this would be a great check, and it is, yeah.
All in?
And then he just goes all in and just loses his mind, and Roberto set him up perfectly here. Basically drawing dead. He's drawing to runners for a pot that's going to be like 30,000.
These guys started something earlier, didn't they? Where Roberto showed the bluff. It wasn't really a bluff, but he raised all in on a flush draw against Damir. But Damir folded his straight draw, and then he showed him. And now, like you said, he got him on the hook. He's reeled him in.
Dead on the turn.
He's put him on the boat. And Uncle G, well, Roberto's he's not just shattered him, he smashed him. And he managed to get all of Damir's stack. That's 17,000 euros in one hand with
fading no outs. Yeah.
Fading nothing.
You can't. You just can't get in better than that in no limit hold'em.
Uncle G says, good game. I think he might be going to the back rail for a little while.
I see you at Kilo.
Oh, he's going to the PLO game.
Has not enjoyed his time here, Damir. He's in a bit of shock.
Probably.
Clearing away for a new player to come into Uncle G's seat. Perhaps it's the Panda.
Sorry.
And the rumor is that it may, in fact, be J.P. Kelly. Double World Series of Poker Bracelet winner. So very nearly the first UK player to win 3 WSOP bracelets.
Her name? Yeah. Amanda. Did they get your chips yet?
He is an awesome player, and he played in this
So the wrist straddle?
big game
Wrist
last
straddle
year.
200.
Just destroyed everybody. He's a great cash game player, and then he got voted off quite quickly. Everyone was just like, I don't even want JP at this table ever.
And cut. Cut.
Tony, help Jungleman get his chips.
Jungleman's getting out today. Yeah.
Everyone, he's got 15,000 mine for the last hour.
Wow, this is a good spot for Torelli. Trickett's opened this pot. Laak called. Jungleman called from the button. And now Trickett's picked up this, Torelli's picked up this hand in the big blind.
Rear is 2,800.
It's a fairly sturdy re-raise.
Cut.
How much, Phil?
And fold.
Do you have another stack of yellow? I can't see.
Oh,
Like, do you have 10 in yellow
here,
or
I'm
like
gonna do
30?
it. I'm gonna expose
Yeah,
it.
okay. I mean,
But Laak's peeled off the flop here. Now, these guys are deep. They're both like 50,000 deep. Holy Toledo. Aces against the flop straight.
Yeah, this could be a big pot here, but Torelli's unlikely to lose a very big hand with aces here.
Well, now the pot's already 7,000. So, I mean, like, unless he's just going to go check, call, if he leads and Laak calls, I mean, this pot can get so big so fast. Is the mistake, Scott, or not the mistake, the clue, if there's ever going to be one for Torelli, that as soon as he gets called here by Laak, he'll realize it really hits Laak's sort of set mining range or something like that?
Yeah, it sets, and obviously, when he hits this board, he hits it pretty well. If he doesn't hit a set or a straight, he's going to hit a pair and a straight draw.
Bet 3,000.
And Phil makes a very small bet, 3,000, less than half pot. Decides to just check call, and this is why. I mean, Alex is playing this hand very well now.
Well, but even playing it like this.
It's actually a great card for Alec. Brings, you know, a 4-card straight on the board.
8,450.
Now he can beat even less.
That's 8,000.
Even the hand, you know, if he had a straight draw, he got there with an 8. If he had a 10 in his hand, he likely also had a, you know, 2 pair now with a 9 or a 7.
So hard to lay down aces head up still.
I think he can do this right here on the turn, and he just can lose the minimum if he can find a fold here.
He just knows, doesn't he, Scott, that there could be another bet. The next bet could be...
I mean, that's what he's thinking in his mind right now. He's thinking, I might have the best hand, but am I willing to call a bet on the river that's going to be 20,000? And I don't think he is with this board complexion. Not to mention, the board can just get worse. An 8 comes, and what does he do? Or a jack. I mean, like, there's a lot of bad river cards to even compound things that Phil just has to hit this board in so many ways, at least a piece of it. He very rarely has absolutely nothing here.
And I think overall, Laak is going to be best barreling the river big, don't you? It's such a polarizing bet right now. If he was bluffing, he would do it.
Yeah, he's got 36,000. He could, I mean, his stack size is where he can ship it here if he wanted to. Yep, and he does. He bets 36,000 into 30,000, which is basically a pot-size shove. And this is so polarized. He either has a straight or he doesn't.
35,
it even brings a backdoor flush, but Phil isn't concerned about that. He decides to ship it because if Torelli had the flush anyway, he would have bet and called off, so it made no difference.
This is now potentially the biggest pot of Big Game 6 so far. Torelli, you always have aces in these spots, don't you? He's calling! He called him! He flopped the straight!
Bravo.
He flopped the straight. He got paid off all in on the river after the 10 came and the club. And Alec knows.
I think I have you covered, right?
Yeah.
Alec knows he was supposed to fold. It was just that little thing. He went with his gut there. He went with his gut, and his gut was wrong. And Scott, he is buried now. He is now. He's just lost his profit. He was the big winner. Phil Laak has got all the money, and he's going nowhere. This is after Jennifer Tilly took 100,000 pounds out of the last game. These guys own the big game.
Yeah, he bought him for 20,000, and now that's almost all gone. He had Phil covered there, but not by much. He's down to just around 4,000, and it could potentially change the whole dynamic of the table.
A massive hand between Laak and Torelli that turns this game on its head. Romanello, having enjoyed his moment, takes a back seat. Yusuf Kurt must wonder what he's let himself in for, and Damir G is out to lick his wounds. More to come from the big game after the break. This game is still got more than 35 hours to go, and holy Toledo. Are we on now? Because we've got about 4 guys locked into their seat. And one thing I know about Phil Laak, he never quits a game.
I don't remember you having a shot. I'm not even joking.
Was it that bad?
He's topped up, Jungleman. I had the feeling that was going to happen, Scott. Well, the good thing is the size of the effective stacks. Torelli is still sorting out. He's topped up for 10,000. It's all change here as the empty seat left by Damir G is about to be filled by JP Kelly, a man who knows what the big game is all about.
I really enjoyed it last year. It was pretty good. I played for about 10, 12 hours and won about 25,000. So hopefully a similar result today.
JP Kelly gets in, and listen, he is a dream to watch, Scott, but this guy is no bargain. He, in my mind, he's, you know, cash game wise, I think he's one of the top 5 players in the UK. Maybe one of the top 5 players in Europe. He's really tough.
Or you know what?
Actually, I've never played with him personally, but I hear nothing but really good things about his play.
He's a monster. He's not just good. He's great. You know, he's
all equal in games.
obviously everyone. You know, Trickett is the name on everyone's lips these days, and why not? He's in Macau. He's just destroying everybody. But JP Kelly would have been the name on everyone's lips maybe just, you know, 14, 15 months ago when he had that run. He won the 2 bracelets. He got the runner-up in Europe. And he was destroying the cash games.
JP elects to buy in for 20,000.
That's probably fair enough. He's a nice guy too, JP. Although he's not really nice to be in pots with.
You folded already?
About 80 something.
And
Maybe more.
Tony G just flops the nuts.
Well,
in the
not only did Tony G flop the nuts, but
wow.
look at Torelli and
Alec
Laak.
Torelli, and now this could be the hand that Alec Torelli gets it in on, because Alec Torelli
Raise
flops
2,000.
top pair in a straight flush draw versus Tony G's nuts, and he's gonna get it in on the very next
Once or
hand.
twice. I got a big hand.
How big are you?
How big? Tony's got the nuts.
Tony's hoping at ace-5, of course, or if you're just trying to chop.
2 times?
Yeah, twice is fine.
Lucky you didn't reload.
You're gonna run it twice.
Not lucky.
You get lucky he didn't reload is what he said for a full.
No, but I wanted to.
Yeah, you're kind of unlucky. I only bought in 10 because I was trying to.
Did you buy in anything more?
I have 10 total.
No, you're
like
14
12,
total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
13-5,
How much?
yeah.
Is that 5? 9?
this is 9.
Problem for Torelli, little does he know that Laak folded
have
2 spades.
Yeah.
You know, how crushing would it be
Roberto
for
also
Torelli
folds,
if,
and pink.
well, I was going to say if he didn't win any of
good
them,
at winning.
but how
listen,
crushing
I'm
would it be
winning
for Tony G if he doesn't win any of them?
Yeah, I have.
Just quit this game and go.
I have.
I think Tony G
exactly
can handle
12, pretty much.
Wants to get in for a lot. I think it'll make the game
twice.
good if Tony loses the second one. But I think they're going to chop this up.
You can use it twice. But
Yeah, I'll lose it twice.
Nope,
I can't beat you. You're too good.
Tony, you should be happy
You're
you ran it
too
twice.
Well done.
I mean,
Can't win. What are you gonna do?
Well, one time they've run it twice now, and
Chopped
both
it up
times they
both
chopped it up. You know, let's be fair. If you
I should have ran it once both times.
You sure?
Yeah.
That was my
I
mistake.
can't win. I can't win a hand. That's for sure.
That's just have to lose.
Tony
if
is
you run
mulling
it
his
once, you're not
Didn't
going to
last year
chop
they
it,
only
and
let
if
you
you
run
run it
once,
twice,
too?
you're going to chop it quite often.
Once last year, right?
We can do it once from now. Let's do that.
Yeah, because you feel like you got to win the first one next time.
No, I don't feel like anything. I just
Let's
don't-
go over to Michelle Orpe.
Okay, it's time for another player elimination. The viewing public have been watching the action unfold through the Poker News live stream. They have all been voting on the player they would like to see kept in the game. The player with the least amount of votes will now be eliminated. And I can tell you, the next player to be voted out by the public at home of the big game 6 it's Roberto.
Roberto Romanello, big surprise, but 25,000 euro winner. I think maybe a lot of people realized that Roberto wasn't staying around too long. And who else? you know, there's too many other guys you want to keep.
Nice play with you guys. Hit and run.
Right, it's gonna be tough anywhere around the table.
Good luck.
Roberto Romanello leaves the big game 6 in profit, and with the option to come back into the game at a later stage.
It's a good outcome for you because, like you say, you can get some sleep, get some rest, come back tomorrow, and we can see you win.
Yeah, you know, keeps the guys who are playing, who want to play, still in the game. And because I was about to leave anyway, maybe half hour more at max. So yeah, and then, you know, let's see what happens. I might come back into the game. We'll see.
Well, you really have no idea. You think this game is good right now? Sure. Phil Laak's ahead 80,000 euros. Jungleman is firing on all cylinders, and Tony G is upset. But look who's coming in. It's Vladimir Geshkenbein putting in 15,000. And if you've never had the pleasure, then the pleasure will be all yours soon.
But I won 4.
He might be the craziest, the sickest, the most action cash game player there is in Europe.
I've been challenged today by Tony G. He challenged me on Twitter, so I decided to come here and see who is the boss.
You got to sit out one hand.
This is Vladimir Keshkin now. Just a little bit about him, for those that don't know. I know that Tony G, he's bringing in 15,000. You'll see a new chip has been introduced into the fray. It's the 5,000 euro chip, slightly orange color. And I know that Tony G ran into Vladimir a few times over in Asia at the World Open, and he's been taunting Bane on Twitter. He's got a massive following, both on the PKR network and just on Twitter. He's a very lively guy. He's got a great sense of humor, and you'll be about to be familiarized with his game. Kelly's opened with the aces, and Tony G's found the queens. Has 3-bet this. Now these two can get a lot of money in. JP with 18,000 back.
Yeah, especially with Tony's stack of 26,000 here, and JP with less, with about just under 19,000.
Take a deep breath and have a think, Tony. What do you think the play is here?
I think he's probably gonna make it 7,000.
If he makes it 7,000, he'll have to play for the rest, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Call.
Oh, he just calls. I was actually getting confused. I thought actually Tony had the aces.
Pretty cool.
Tony will give himself some options here, depending on how the board comes. But a lot of boards will get these players' stacks in.
Check.
Tony doesn't have a queen of clubs, which actually does change people's, you know, minds in marginal situations in spots like this. Just having that little bit extra.
This flop's so similar to the one where Torelli went broke with the aces. And if you're JP, you do think that Tony could have flopped a set here sometimes, right? I mean,
that's always possible, but I don't think Tony's range is just, you know, peppered with pairs there. Tony's range is pretty wide if he opens to defend himself when called, but I mean, he's, you know, 2 pairs and pair and straight ball possibilities are also present there, and flush draws, of course.
and with Tony only having, well, effectively JP's got 12,000 back. Most players are just going to get the money in, right?
Let's see these stacks here.
Right. JP's got 12 back now. Tony's called the 3,600 on the flop.
It's definitely going in or not on the turn here. I wouldn't be surprised if JP just ships it right here. That's probably the play. It's 12-4 into 13-4. He's probably going to go all in right here.
Obviously, Tony's in trouble here, Scott, but he's kind of played this hand well, hasn't he, in the sense that he's given JP a chance to be bluffing at it,
or in the case, or to catch up, depending on what his hand is. But we'll see if he can get away from it now. I expect JP to go all in here.
600.
I think he's bet about half his, well, he's bet 4,000 to set up the pot on the river.
Sure, he bet it to commit really here. He bet 4,000 with 8,000 behind. He bet 4,600 with 7,800 behind. I mean, this is a total commit spot here.
I do feel for him. And I think either way, there's going to be a little bit of an explosion when this hand is over.
Right. Tony's basically asking himself, is he even bluffing here 25% of the time? There's a great fold.
Tony, go on, G. Go on, G.
Like, Tony's thing, if he's bluffing there even like a third of the time, it's probably profitable to go with it.
That was a good fold by Tony G.
It was a really good fold.
You know, he's not just a big round guy, is he? The guy's got some poker sense.
Right.
He's skilled.
He's willing to get it in super light for a lot of money, and he's also capable of folding big hands, and that's what makes him dangerous.
And JP will be thinking to himself, I can't get Tony G to stack off with queens when I have aces.
Well, he doesn't know it yet, but I'm sure he won't be thrilled to hear that Tony folded queens.
And, you know, for a guy, Scott, who, as we saw, he went, he bet 5,000 in the blind with the 8-3 offsuit his very first hand to protect his 12,000 the way he just did with queens. That shows that he's not here to make up the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really well-played hand by Tony. He lost almost the minimum there, and I'm not sure everybody else at the table would have played it the same way and not been stacked. I think once Tony G looks at his hand, he decided to play the ace-6 suited.
3-bet here from Kelly, JP in the small blind, up to 1,500 with the ace-9.
Pretty aggressive play out of position.
It is, but it's the situation he wants, isn't it? Isolating Torelli and Tony G.
Well, he likes to call that raise, and this can get him into a bit of trouble, but I don't think JP Kelly is going to go crazy with it with the ace-9 here, because basically every ace has him beat, except for the ace that Tony has.
So if you're not going to go for 3 streets of value for JP Kelly, what might you do?
I think he's going to get 2 streets here.
So you check the turn, or you bet the turn and check the river.
It's going to be one of the two. He's going to check call the turn or check call the river.
And now you'd be really scared because
now the ace-5 got there. Tony has literally one of the 2 aces that Kelly can beat, and it was a super dry board.
Is there any way that Kelly may decide that he doesn't want any more of this?
Not for 1,500. Tony just bet 1,500 into 7,000. Tony thinks he has the best hand, is trying to extract value. And now if Kelly just calls, which I think he just will, it might go check on the river, and Tony again will have lost the minimum.
Oh my God, that was it.
Yeah,
now there are no aces that Kelly beats except for the ace-6.
I think it probably goes check here. Yeah, Tony actually played the hand really well by betting only 1,500 on the turn. It allows JP to check the river, and then Tony just to check back. Had Tony check back the turn, JP may have made a much bigger bet on the river than Tony's 1,500, and it would have cost him more.
Torelli's taking a top up. I thought he was going to take a top up, as I'm sure you did, Scott. It was just kind of nice to see him take his time a little bit, wait until he was ready to grind back again after that.
He's got it now. He's got a nice full stack there, 30,000. He's probably ready to get back into the mix of things.
Raise.
Just in time. How sweet is that? You top up 17,000 on your stack and pick up the Rockets.
Right now we got about €250,000 on the table.
Quarter. Small blind 4.
And one thing, I mean, Torelli is just gagging for a re-raise. He's gagging for it. Instead, I believe he's got 6-way action. You may as well tear those aces up into little pieces and throw them back at the dealer.
That's not exactly what you want to see when you have 2 aces. Is get called in 5 spots.
Check.
There is literally no flop that's going to be safe out there that doesn't include an ace.
And when you hit that ace, nobody else has one, and that's generally an action killer. Bit of a catch-22 there.
So Torelli really just wants to just go home right now, doesn't he? 1,000 bet, 1,000 called. How is Jungleman supposed to play this?
I mean, he's never folding, but he can obviously decide to raise here or to call.
So much more powerful to raise here, right? When you you know, are drawing, at least drawing to the nuts in several spots.
It's tough when you have six-way action. One pair is tough to continue with.
I don't think it should be a surprise to anyone that Jungleman's made the perfect move, right? He's going to get this, isn't he? I mean, can Torelli continue?
He can probably peel one, though he doesn't have the ace of clubs. That would help him. So he knows now, you know, ace-high flush draws are obviously also in Jungleman's range. He is going to peel a card. And that means if he peels here, he's probably, if blanks come up in the turn and river, meaning no clubs or sevens and twos and those kind of cards, he probably calls down.
Big card. Oh, that was Bain's card.
Yeah, it was. It would have made him top two.
He'll be sick.
I think Jungleman knows where he's at in the hand. Probably puts Torelli on some sort of overpair.
Or the nut flush draw, I'm guessing, right? Or no?
Nut flush draw often would have pushed back here, but that's obviously always an option.
I just kind of feel like Jungleman's one of those guys, Scott, who once he makes up his mind to play this way, he's just going to barrel it off. You know, just no matter what, he's just going to barrel it off.
You could show Jungleman that Torelli does in fact have two aces, and I still think he makes this bet. He's trying to push him off a hand just like this.
And the river bet as well.
Right.
I mean, you don't knuckle the river, do you?
And what the funny part is he's put in another very similar situation as he was before, though there is no made hand yet. There is no made straight on the board. But he has two aces, and he's being put to the test with it again. I wonder if he's going to be a little gun-shy with it because he just got stacked with aces and doesn't want it to happen again.
Oh, he has to be gun-shy. I mean, he has to have the feeling in the pit of his stomach right now, which is just like...
Right. Sometimes you don't want to be, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. He doesn't want to be put into that same spot and make another bad decision in a very similar spot with the same hand. Seeing a little bit of deja vu right now.
Is it possible he could be saying to himself right now, all right, I'm just going to stack off here, and if I lose the hand, I'm going to get a taxi to the airport? Have you ever done that? Just
something like that. Yeah. I played some hands where I'm like, well, this is the last one either way then.
Yeah.
Or if I lose it anyway.
I feel pretty bad for Alec here. And I really think Jungleman is going to follow. Oh, this is...
Nice read.
That was smart. That was smart.
Here it goes. Here it goes.
That's number 14 for this trip. 20-minute penalty for the jungle.
That was a nice play by Alec. And what was the idea there, Scott?
The idea is he knew that Dan didn't have nothing, meaning he had some sort of draw if he didn't already have a made hand. And he didn't want to give Dan a free look at the river if he put him on that draw. And if he had a made hand, he felt like if he had like a set or something like that, he was still going to call off on the river. So he just wanted to take it down right now.
He's still strong, Alec Torelli. And he drew his line in the sand. Good stuff. Good stuff, Torelli.
With that pot right there, he's got over about 42,000.
Wow, that was Torelli's night right there. That was his big game 6. He used to be a lot crazier, Bain. He's actually settled down quite a bit. For instance, he does not have 7 tequila shots lined up on the table behind him. That right there is just a huge sign of maturity.
Chord. Chord.
But he does have a lot of talent.
Chord.
And he does have quite a following. in the circles he moves in.
Call.
We've got a multi-way pot. I believe it was Torelli now, last to act here from the limp position. This one opened by the G. Called by Phil Laak on the button. Yusuf in the big blind and Torelli on the straddle. And the G has finally got somebody wrapped up.
He's got bottom two, and Torelli's got top pair with a big kicker.
What price can I get on the G getting it all in against Torelli, then running it twice and chopping the pot?
Well, Tony's got about 15,000 here. Lex just a call, which is a little surprising with bottom two, not to protect his hand.
Why would you protect it because it's such a vulnerable hand?
It's a little vulnerable. There aren't any flush draws out there. There's a few straight draws, but there aren't so many cards you have to worry about on the turn to play it slowly and see how the hand develops. And there's some hands that when Torelli bets out here, he's got a jack here a lot of the time, and he hits it. At least Tony knows where he is right now and hates that card, because now even his 9, he's playing jacks and 9s, and his kicker doesn't even play.
Did he just sigh audibly?
Yeah, he did.
I mean, that's, as far as poker faces go, that's...
looks like Tony's just going to fold here.
The audible sigh is not a great indicator.
But he does call and elect to peel a river. He can beat all those straight draws now, but that's it. And that was a brick, so if Tony had him on one of those draws, it's likely to see Tony call again here if Torelli makes a smallish bet.
This is where we get to practice our Lithuanian curse comprehension. He really does have to call if he's called at this stage.
Let's see what
like
the
it.
2,800.
2,800, I think. Yeah, I mean, he made a really small bet too. I feel like he felt where Tony was in the hand, having like a 9 there, and he's sizing it to try to get a 9 to call it. He'd be hard pressed.
Look at Sam Trickett peeking behind to see what he had. He's now walked off stage where he's just gonna laugh, isn't he?
Yeah, he made it really cheap for Tony here. Tony feels he doesn't like the spot, but he doesn't have to be right very often in order to make this call profitable.
I think Sam's gonna find a wind-up at some stage after this.
He's thinking, how often is Alec bluffing here?
I mean, to be fair, Scott, the line that Alec has taken, leading out from the blinds and stuff into 4 people on this kind of board, it is a draw pretty often, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes, definitely not most of the time, but it only has to be a draw like a quarter of the time.
Call.
Tony does make the call.
King Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's put into tough spots a lot tonight. Tony's been getting really unlucky.
He has. He's actually played really well, hasn't he? In a lot of spots.
Yeah, he's lost the minimum in a few different spots. He's been put into just bad spots, and he hasn't made big hands.
Alec Torelli fighting his way back from the depths of despair and back onto the right side of the profit and loss account, while Tony G runs up against a brick wall time after time. Welcome back to the Austrian capital for the 6th staging of the big game, a 48-hour cash game. Here in Vienna, 4 diehards have lasted the course, but with varying degrees of success.
If I had aces there, I would have got it in with him right there.
I really will be getting if Geshkenbein just peters away. He's kind of lost 4,000 without really getting his teeth in yet.
Yeah, well, he's still just feeling out the table. He just got here. There's plenty of time.
Maybe he bluffed me with 9-3 of spades. I don't know what he did.
And straddle on seat number 5.
Here I try to win when it doesn't work out. I just try and relax, you know.
Yusuf's been fairly on the conservative end. See if he opens up.
we haven't seen much out of him. Hasn't gotten out of line here at all since he sat down.
Yeah, one fold.
He's gonna get a lot of credit if he does decide to make a play.
There's no raise. It's just a call. Just a call. Now it's a raise. It's on 300. C2. And call.
Trickett's like, well,
Call.
if you won't raise, I will.
Check.
Sam flops the flush draw here.
Check.
And Jungleman with top pair.
Yeah, and Yusuf sitting right next to him with 2 pair. How's Jungleman gonna play this?
Bet 1,000.
This is the tester bet?
Yeah, this is, well, I mean, it was only a 1,700 pot. Bit over half pot, pretty standard there.
Yusuf's got 8,600.
Yeah, this is a perfect spot to make like a big raise here because there's a lot of draws out there, straight draws and flush draws. Maybe try to make your opponent think that you're on one of those draws, especially when Yusuf only has 7,600. He can basically commit himself, or even jam. He could have just gone all in with the amount of money in the pot for only 7,500. It would have been a raise of 6,500, and there would have been already 4,000 in the pot.
800. Fold.
What's Trickett's intention here? He definitely.
Oh well, yeah. I expect Kurt to just to jam it here. I mean, this is the spot you've been waiting for all night. You flop two pair in a spot like this in a draw heavy board. You're likely at the best hand here.
All in.
All in.
And he goes all in.
Sam Trickett doesn't have much choice here. He already put half of it
call,
in.
yeah.
He called instantly. They will.
And Yusuf wants to run it twice. And they're going to do 2 boards here.
Okay, we're running twice. Yeah.
It's the first time Yusuf's got all his money in.
Ooh, that gives him a lot more outs. He can now win with an ace, a 10, or an 8 to go along with his hearts.
Yeah, but historically you hit first.
Nope, first one goes to Yusuf.
What are you tilted at, Jungle? How can I hear mumbling? I'm doing my money. I'm doing my money over here. 7-8, didn't he? Would have got it. Would have got there.
He's tilted that he decided to run it twice and he has to wait for the second run up.
No.
That's fair. There's the heart.
Well, he's got a redraw now to a full house.
How does he
There are 2 5s and 2 6s left in the deck.
Why can't he have like pocket 5s?
Yeah, in a 5-way pot. A rare branch.
Anyone who wonders what's going on, if you've never seen the run it twice before, basically, once the money is all in, the players can agree to split the pot in half and deal 2 boards, each for half the pot, which they did here. They split it.
Doesn't change the mathematics of everything, it just serves to reduce variance in the game.
Sir, floor.
Doesn't change the math, however, I do think it prevents tilt, which, how is that good?
Potentially, it can increase tilt in some ways if you should have won the whole pot but only won half because you decided to run it twice, but in general, yeah, it's a tilt reducer.
11,000 for Jungleman.
Definitely not good for the game if everyone's running it twice.
11,000 for Jungleman behind. There it is. 8. Tell me if that's 11. 9, 10, 11, right? There. Now you don't have to say, bring me 11,000, put it on Jungleman account.
Yeah, once Phil gives it to you, then they're going to realize that like it's going to screw up
11,000 for him.
You know?
And then when he gets the chips, bring him to me.
Yeah.
All
Because,
yellows.
like, now
11
it's out of
yellows
his stack,
for
so
Jungle.
it's like a problem.
Jungle just bought 11 yellows. He would like them brought to him now.
Nein, ich glaube, ich habe das Empty und das Blank schon reingegeben.
He wants 11 yellows. This man right here. 11.
He double straddled.
Let's go, guys.
Yeah, tell him Phil.
Sorry.
Yeah, 200.
Fold.
Double straddled.
The straddle is from Tony G. It's the double straddle. It's 200, so 200 around.
This man wants to buy
And
11 of
down
these.
into the
He wants
blinds
somebody to
now.
bring him 11 of these for 11,000. Yep, he wants 11.
Call in 5.
I think, is that possible that Tony G he's gone
There, one is all in.
he's gone all in on the blind before the flop?
Did he look at his cards?
This was sort of
I
thin, but this
think
was
he
my
did.
plan, so
I'm running it once.
Okay.
Wow, I play good.
You're the best. You are the best. You deserve it.
Ace-6 off.
Torelli is raised, Tony G went all in, and Torelli called.
Fine with me.
And what do you know? Tony's dominated.
Spain's sitting in the middle thinking,
Oh, he gets this one
Cut it out.
so far.
Bring a 7.
7 from heaven.
7 from heaven. That's the best one. The sweet one.
You got the right spirit, Tony.
What'd you have? Did you have like...
Nothing.
You had nothing, right? Like just
Obviously, I'm not ever gonna perform.
well, unless the 8 comes,
Yeah, no.
or the 7,
The deuce is safe now.
I think I can't remember.
believe that Tony G is going to be in a strong spot.
Straight. Got straight.
Tony doubles up. Got about back up to about 10K.
How lucky are you that I'm so short stacked though? Still, your luck's running. When you run good, it's like look at my stack. It's like an embarrassment.
$3.
Torelli's so golden.
Possibly.
You're so lucky you're short.
How good can you run, right?
I had the worst hand I could possibly have.
Imagine I had like 50,000. That would have been the setup. You would have been. Hoover would have been out.
Still down quite a bit, Tony G.
11,000 has arrived.
That is Jungleman's top up. He does have a good stack in front of him, Jungleman. Nearly 40,000. He's losing a little bit,
That's some pots.
but he wants to be as deep as possible.
And the jungle wakes up with pocket aces.
Honestly, it's the 4th or 5th time he's had them this evening.
Yeah. Doesn't seem fair.
That's how you get in the game.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how he wins all those millions online.
You have to run out. That's what it should be.
Yeah, you
Could be.
re-raise.
Yeah, whoever wants to get in there, it's a part of the pot. You
Call. Nice call.
Can't raise it. 5 players. Just call. Just outplay.
3 players.
You bet 10 on the flat. Outplay that.
Called in the small blind and the straddle position, a couple suited connectors. Let's see if Jungleman gets himself in trouble with aces. I don't think this is trouble.
Well, Phil does flop a flush draw here, but top set isn't too bad.
How is Phil going to play this? Check raise, check call.
I doubt Phil will put in a check raise. That will color me surprised.
Or more like along the lines of hoping you can get a cheap showdown.
Yeah, he doesn't want to see. He doesn't want to see the jack of clubs. It's, if Jungleman makes this too much, Phil can't really continue here. But he's looks like he's electing to lead out.
Therefore, bet.
And I understand that it was a spot where he couldn't check and call, so instead he decided to lead out and thought maybe he can take it on the pot that way. It's a perfect opportunity to lead out if you think you have some value in your hand, yet you don't want to check call. Go ahead and lead out. However, he kind of led out into a monster.
He did, and did he bet 5,000 and 2,500?
It doesn't. It would be interesting if that graphic is right, but
it is.
It'd be 200%, 2x pot.
It's exactly what he did. I mean, what does the
yeah, he did. He did in fact bet twice as much, and that induces Dan to just call here because he's representing the nut straight here. You know, just queen king. So if Phil bets really big again, Dan will probably just call. If Phil bets smaller, Dan will raise.
One thing Phil cannot do is win this pot. And he has knuckled it back. I think a good thing.
The best thing Dan can do here is bet small, just to hope he can induce a raise out of Phil. Nothing polarized. Maybe like a third of the pot.
Well, I guess it was a funny bet on the turn there. The problem is Jungleman was onto it. Although, granted, his hand is so big he can't really do anything else but be onto it.
Pretty sure that I don't like that.
Yeah, whenever Phil starts talking on the river, he folds. He's already decided to fold. Just going through his motions when he has nothing.
Missed your first flush draw, Phil.
I definitely have the bust down.
The pressure mounts on R8 players. Jungleman starts the long journey back. Tony G is still searching for answers. Kirk, Geshkenbein, and Trickett are looking for an opening. Torelli, once a major force at this table, is on the ropes and reeling from a succession of major blows, but he staged a major fight back. And of R8, JP Kelly is riding high and willing to challenge Laak. Over 10 hours down, but plenty of play left in the Party Poker Big Game 6.